From morning to millions, can you feel it? We're turning all these dreams into ruins. Power in the shell and we all in. Hands to the ceiling, hands to the ceiling. From morning to millions, we're electric. Every single heart in the same script. Snover had a vision, now we live it. Morning to millions, can you feel it? Feel it?
Hey everybody, this is Jeffrey Snover. PowerShell 7 is the 20-year story of preparing you for drama. PowerShell is all about you. You learn PowerShell and your value will continue to appreciate over time. The sacred vow.
The inventor of PowerShell, Jeffrey Snover.
Happy days. Okay?
Hello and welcome everyone to today's live stream, Mona to Millions. I'm very excited to have Jeffrey Snover with me and a great group of members of the PowerShell team. And well, we're going to talk about Mona to Millions. So I will get Jeffrey on stage. Hi, Jeffrey.
Howdy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking the time. And yeah, happy retirement, or should I say semi-retirement, more like it, right?
Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, I want to start with a quote that I just read a few minutes ago from Rod Trent. And I think it's a nice bracket about what we're going to talk about, I think, today, which is kind of looking back on PowerShell, but also what's the future. And what he was writing just an hour ago is it's more like a question and a statement. Have you caught that Claude Code uses a lot of PowerShell to accomplish its tasks? Can you imagine a world without PowerShell? I mean, that's really says something, right? It's really something that takes us back to the beginning, where we I think going to start in the conversation, and also when we bring the group into the conversation, but also then looking forward. So how is your retirement? Maybe you start with this first.
It lasted 5 weeks, but it was a great 5 weeks.
Okay. And then you got bored and said, oh my God, okay, I have to do something.
Yeah, so this week I start as a fellow at Harvard University at the law school at the Berkman Klein Center, where I'll be studying what I consider to be, sort of the most important conversation of our time, this conversation about AI and what do we do with it. And they're really kind of these three camps, right? There's the accelerationists, the group I call it the all gas, no brakes crowd. And then there's the safetyists, like, oh, we're going to die, the all brakes, no gas crowd. And then the skeptics, like, hey, you're not paying attention to the right things. And anyway, so this is a crucial conversation, and it's not going very well. And so I'm going to see if I can't help that. Using some of the skills I brought in the technology world around, that was often the job as a senior guy. Like, hey, this is all broken. These teams are at each other's throats. Go in there and fix it. And you got to be an honest broker and understand what people's genuine concerns are. Point out where there's agreement. Be clear about where there's disagreement, etc. So I'm hoping to bring some of those skills. And I got to tell you, I'm just thrilled to be involved with Harvard. I walked around the campus last night and I was like pinching myself. What the hell is a guy like me doing here? But here I am.
Awesome. But I think Dhruv just, I think he put it perfectly, right? Jeffrey is too valuable to be retired. I mean, I think that's a great statement. But maybe just go. Let's start with Monad for a second. So actually, kind of off stage, Bruce Payet already told a great story, and we're coming back to that, I think, pretty soon. So why did PowerShell? Why did you create PowerShell? What was the problem you tried to solve?
Well, I had to. So originally, when I came to Microsoft, it was to help them get into the enterprise marketplace, right? So they had small business server, and that did very well, but it wasn't successful in the enterprise. So they had a number of reviews with Bill, and at some point he said, "I think we need some help here." And that's when they started looking for what they call an industry hire, and they hired me to be the head of technology head of all the management tools and technologies. And when I came in, I said, okay, well, yeah, this GUI thing, happy days, but no, we need a command line interface. And so we had a technology called Services for Unix. We had acquired it from a company. And so we're trying to get that available in Windows. I failed at that because of concerns about copy left, if you remember that, and the whole Linux is cancer nonsense. But we were able to make it available free for download. I thought, okay, great. That's going to give admins the tools they need to succeed. And it failed. And the reason it failed was then I truly understood the architectural difference between Linux and Windows. In Linux, everything is a file. Awk, grep, sed are management tools, right? You awk register, you edit files and you restart processes. You can do anything. Nothing in Windows, nothing interesting in Windows is a file. Everything's an API that returns objects, right? So you couldn't awk against the registry, you couldn't sed against Active Directory, you couldn't grep against WMI. It's like, oh, so that was useless, completely useless. And so then I said, okay, well, we need a set of command line interfaces. And so first, people were like, no. It's like, well, no, we need to do this. And they're like, well, you can't bother these people. They're too valuable to waste their time on something nonsense like that. But then I got a budget. And so with the budget, and it was like $4 million, a lot of money. I hired these contractors and had them write a bunch of individual command line interfaces, right? And it took forever. And we ended up with like 70. And then I thought, oh, I have this other problem, and that's WMI. WMI is like this cool technology, but when somebody writes a WMI provider, like nobody uses it, right? And they say, oh, well, Tivoli uses it. Well, that was my job at Tivoli. And guess what? I didn't really use it. I just did enough to get a checkbox and get on stage as a part of a promo to advance Tivoli, but it really didn't do anything. So I was like, no, that's not it. And I said, I love Perfmon. I always thought Perfmon was the perfect management model, right? Because Perfmon said, hey, here's this inbox GUI, this tool, and anybody who writes a perf counter shows up, they show their boss is happy, pats them on the back, gives them a promo, happy days. But then, Perfmon didn't really do all that much. But then you had these Perfmon counters that then some management tools could come in and take advantage of. So I said, that's a perfect model. So we need to have something like that for WMI. If you write a WMI provider, you should at least get a command line interface. And so that's when we did WMIC. And WMIC is really the kind of precursor to PowerShell. So concretely, WMIC, so here's where culture comes in, right? Often, we often think as like constraints are our enemy. Turns out constraints were a huge friend here. What I discovered at Microsoft was there's an incredible amount of wonderful software that you can't have because developers developed it and tests said, I don't have time to test it. Like, okay, well, throw it in the bin. Like, what? What? You throw it in the bin? Yeah, well, we're not shipping anything that tests can't test. And guess what? There was tons of stuff that couldn't be tested. So it was thrown in the bin. Okay. So I looked at that and I said, oh God, I'm going to do all this work and then they're going to throw it away. I said, oh, I got an idea. What I'll do is I'll say, hey, I'm going to build the engine. You test the engine, but then the content won't be subject to test, right? So like an HTML browser, right? You test the browser capabilities, but you don't say, I'm not going to ship the browser until I test every page on the internet, right? That doesn't make sense. So what I said was, oh, well, the engine will be driven off metadata, right? And so we built this engine. And by the way, so I got some extra money, right? I got $4 million, and then I got like 40,000 to do this one. And we built this engine. Originally, the team fought against me. Originally, the team's like, well, no, we'll just write some WMI scripts. It's like, no. We won't get it through test. We need to write an engine. And they fought me. And it was one of those times it's like, nope, I'm going to be a butthead here. We're going to do it this way. End of discussion. And so we did it that way. And then over Christmas break, I wrote all the metadata. And 2 weeks later, I had 72 commands. Like $4 million, and I ended up with 70, and $40,000, I ended up with 72. It's like, oh my God. And then they were incredibly regular because I had one parser, and they generated all this great stuff. And I thought, hey, you know what? This is really cool. Can I get some extra money to enhance the engine? So I got an extra $70,000, enhance the engine with things like sorting and filtering and formatting, etc. And I put it to the engine, and then all 72 of those commands got more awesome. And that's when it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is the right architecture. And then from there, ultimately, the next step, right, was Bill Gates. So that shipped, happy days, went on to other things. At some point, Bill Gates was beating me up. .NET. He's beating everyone up. And I'm like, Bill, our hair's on fire, and .NET is not a bucket of water. I'm pretty sure it's not going to solve any problems that we have in management. But he just beat us. So at some point, I was like, okay, I got maybe he's right, maybe I'm wrong. I got to understand this technology. So I thought, well, I'll rewrite WMIC in .NET. And what I had was the thought that, hey, WMIC was just a command line. And then I had some switches to do some capabilities, right, to formatting, etc. I thought, well, hey, I should turn those into pipelines. And what I'll do is I'll have pipelines of XML. Instead of pipelines of text, I'll have pipelines of XML. And then I'll have a set of XSLT transforms. And that was horrible. I mean, I don't know if you ever used XSLT. And I kept thinking, well, it'll be like awk, right? Everybody uses awk. They use it and they say, well, that sucks. And then they use it and they say, that sucks. And then at some point, like, oh, I get it. And then it's easy after that. And so I thought that's the way XSLT would be. And it wasn't. It just sucked. It just continued to suck. But as I was stepping on that rake, I found .NET Reflection. That's when the world turned, baby. That's when the world turned. So then that ended up turning into the monad, pipelines of objects, having this core engine that did all the work, having a single common parser. Thank you, fucking superstar Bruce Payette. And then at some point back to that model of like everything was constrained by test. Again, to the degree to which we shipped things, test would look at it and say, I don't have time to test it. So I said, okay, now I originally I need a little scripting language. And then when I got that in focus, it's like, no, I need a good scripting language. Handed that off to Bruce and Jim Truer, and man, did they hit a home run with that. 10 times greater than anything I had ever anticipated.
Awesome.
That's part of it. A series
awesome.
of failures and constraints that forced our hand into doing something awesome.
So that's, I think, awesome. I think it's a great segue into bringing Bruce into the conversation.
Hello.
Hi, Bruce. I mean, you were at the very beginning of
I was.
whole journey.
Bruce was before me.
Yes.
Bruce was working on Kermit.
Yes, I was working on the project was called Kermit at the time because it was about a turtle that lost its shell, and so we were going to create a new shell. So that was fun. Jim, I started at Microsoft. I was on services for Unix for about 4 hours, and then I changed jobs.
Okay, all right, and then you found your purpose, right?
I did,
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, and think of it as so another segue I tried to get here is like all of that, an awesome community started to grow and bloom until today, and obviously into the future. Is this something that you guys had any idea about that this is going to happen?
Yes, that would be one of our success criteria. the ability for people to contribute to the community. I mean, the model that we had was Perl. And Perl had CPAN, the Comprehensive Perl Archive Network. So if you had a problem, you would just go to the CPAN and get a Perl script to solve that for you. That's exactly the model that we wanted for PowerShell. And now we have the module gallery.
Awesome. So really now, welcome everyone here on the panel. We have some great people from around the world from the PowerShell community, and as PowerShell is a lot about the community, I would really like to take obviously the opportunity also to hear some stories from you guys, like how PowerShell changed your career. What was your maybe some fun moments?
Yeah, Bruce,
yes,
nailed it. One of the things I think we got right very early on was it wasn't about the technology, it was about the users. It was about how can we make these users more productive? And that's why we had that sacred vow, right? The sacred vow is, hey, look, I know your hair's on fire and I'm asking you to learn something new. But if you do, we're going to do everything in our power to make you valuable over time, right? That we're going to reuse things. We're going to do it again and again and again. We're not going to abandon this technology. And it was always about the user. And one of my favorite points was when early days of Monad, we had some beta and early release, and some admin out there said, look at the script I wrote. I'm awesome. I was like, yes, you are awesome.
Nice.
Great story. Yeah, so that it's about the people, right? Using it, exchanging ideas and scripts. So I would say let's go in around how we have the you guys here on the screen here. So Matthew, maybe if you would like to start, like a little short story of your PowerShell journey.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big things that I can say about PowerShell is it basically it turned my ADHD into a superpower. I'm the type of person who, if I have to do something 3 times, that's my limit. After that, I'm gonna make something to do it for me, and that by having that has really helped, power my career and build that out from back in going from Windows XP to Windows 7, doing a humongous migration of 18,000 apps. Being able to script the ability to create the MSIs and build the packages and all that, and just really kind of took off from there. So that's the big my love of PowerShell. It's just the repeatability, the be able to, and then you use that, you have that grows as your career grows, and you keep building on top of it. So
awesome. And that's also led to you writing a book about it, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So Alexander, what's your PowerShell story you want to tell?
What's my PowerShell story? So I started when it was called Monad, but I couldn't even download it because Serbia was on some blacklist at that time. So I needed to send an email to American friend to send me the zip file. And I tried it and I didn't understand it, and I really didn't like it. But I was very convinced somehow that it will be important. Because before that, I used command line, I use Windows scripting host, and I kind of got bored with all of them. And I thought, like, there should be something better, right? So I said, like, let me kind of bookmark this and try it a little bit later. And when they announced it with a new name, with a PowerShell, I download PowerShell. And I don't know if I changed between Monad and PowerShell, or PowerShell really changed. But then somehow we clicked. And then I started using it. And for me, one of the big things that really changed the way how I worked was the AD commandlets created by Quest. Because my main goal at that time was to manage Active Directory. And that really solved a lot of problems for me, because instead of going to a GUI to do stuff there, it was much easier to do it with a PowerShell. And Quest kind of filled in the gap before Microsoft released commandlets for Active Directory. So for me, that was kind of at the breaking point of, like, when I really realized that PowerShell will be super useful for what I'm doing.
Awesome. And then many vendors followed, right, with their own modules, and they extended the ecosystem a lot, right?
True.
There was that awkward kind of like misdirection where we had one partner who misunderstood the naming scheme and decided that Citrix was a verb. So we worked with them. That fixed.
Awesome. So Doug, what's your best PowerShell story?
Wow, I only have a couple of minutes. Well, I've been around for 100 years, so I was indoctrinated on the mainframe, watched the PC come to be. That's where my first CLI happened. On the mainframe, we only had one color, green, and then Unix came into being, and then that was like the command line that we all started getting used to. So the aux said grep stuff, and that went on for decades. And then all of a sudden, I'm just cruising around the internet, and I see they're talking about this thing called Monad, a new CLI. So I looked at a video, and there's Jeffrey and Jim Truer, and I'm like, okay, what is this thing going to be? And Jeffrey does his canonical demo of get process and pipes it to where $_handle count is greater than 800. Luckily, he spelled handle count correctly that time. And then he goes, I'm looking at it going, I'm looking at it and thinking, well, we're just piping. What's the big deal? And then he goes, we didn't pipe text, we piped objects. And I was like that dog, when they say you want to go for a walk and the dog turns its head. I went, objects. And it was from that point on, I'm like, holy crap, this is crazy. So yeah, that was my experience with the community. And not much long after, JSON, there wasn't a JSON parser inside of PowerShell. So I decided to write one. And I kept having issues. And I was working with a bunch of guys who were experts in Scheme and Lisp, and I was telling them about what I was doing. They were like, well, just use tail recursion. I'm like, what the hell's that? And then I tried it. I couldn't figure it out. And I got on this community board or whatever it was. And I said, hey, I'm trying to do tail recursion. And this guy gets on and goes, oh, yeah, we didn't implement that. I'm like, who's the we? And we didn't implement it. And it was Bruce Payette responding to me. And I found out who he was. and that was my experience with the community. And then Ed Wilson jumps in as a scripting guy, starts doing these contests and all the stuff. And it was just like, wow, this is a really cool space to be in. And object-oriented CLIs were just mind-blowing. So it was fun times.
Yeah, hats off to Superstar Ed. He was awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Scripting games in the early days of PowerShell.
Yep. Fantastic stuff.
Fun. Yep.
Awesome story. Yeah. So let's hear Jaap from. So what's your before you ask maybe your famous question? What's your favorite module? Right. But maybe first what's your PowerShell? What's your best PowerShell story?
My best PowerShell story. I'd say I go for the first time that I actually built something that was production worthy and was widely used. Because the first time I started was just to get process stuff, and I have to say initially I was quite annoyed by PowerShell with Exchange. I think it was Exchange 2007, and then I had to type stuff instead of clicking stuff, and I was quite upset about that. So initially I didn't get it that much. But the first time I actually put it to work was when we had to do a file migration, and it was a hard one with I think it was some proprietary third party file server that we had to get stuff off, and the people that were working on the project before, they were clicking each individual file and then dragging it off the server, and I thought we can do that better. And one of my colleagues also thought he could do it better. So he started working in VBScript, and I had to be a hipster, so I started doing it in PowerShell. we ended up making a bit of a Frankenstein of his VBScript UI and my PowerShell backend, but neither was a front end or a backend. But we managed to smush it together and get a migration tool working over a couple of months. I'm not sure if that's the greatest PowerShell story, because as I'm telling it, it sounds more like a horror story. But I had a good time.
No.
And there was also
Bruce nailed this. He said, that what is your phrase? 99% or 90% of the scripts written in the world will start at the prompt and end at the carriage return. You know?
Right.
That what we needed to do, and then like, so you needed to do something, and then you needed to be able to hack something, and then if you need to hack it, then you need to make it parameterizable to generalize it, and then at some point production. And we wanted to support each one of those levels, and that's what Bruce did with the language. So no, that's a success. That's like stage one. You know, it's no use investing in production quality code if it's the wrong code. So you hack it up. Like, oh, is this going to work? Yeah. Then you turn it into production.
Yeah, and it also fits to the PowerShell is the glue, right? I mean, you put together different technologies just to make it work, right? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So Harm, let us tell us why PowerShell is fun.
Well,
Pun intended.
well, it is actually. Well, my PowerShell story is coming from batch scripting, trying to learn VB scripts, which I'm so glad that PowerShell was there before I had to start learning VB scripts. It's a nightmare, but it made my life so much easier. All the admin things I had to do using batch scripts, parsing, WMIC, the command line version, switching over to PowerShell made everything so much easier. Sometimes I even had like time left in my day instead of just working all day trying to fix something. Just a few lines of code. Yeah.
It's awesome,
more powerful. Yeah.
And that led to your blog, PowerShell is Fun, right? And many other things.
Yeah.
Which is
It
definitely
still is.
worth following, right? So thank you. So Gail, what's your PowerShell story?
Oh, I'm just being lazy. So I come from networking and a bit of Unix administration as well. And I started to go into the Windows environment, and I was like, okay, tinkering a little bit, and then I had to learn VBScript. And I think that says it all when you have to manage complex systems in VBScript. It just doesn't work. And then trying to find other ways. So I tried as well. I've seen the system for Unix, I think, and then that didn't work either. I tried. I failed. I did try that. Which was good. It was just a feature that you had to enable, but that was just not good enough. And then discovered PowerShell, and that just made my life much easier. I managed to really help a company to, they were building with MDT, building new machines, lots of machines every day, but they had, I don't know, a 20-page document that you need to go through and then click around for each machine that you build. And I've done it once. I said, I'm not going to do that 3 times. The second time I improved the documentation. The third time I automated it. And then it went from, I don't know how many hours to something like 40 minutes to just leave it do its thing. So that was a clear success. And then I discovered there was a PowerShell conference in Europe, which was the PowerShell Summit Europe at the time. And I went there, discovered this amazing community, and I've been doing this ever since. So that was amazing, and that really improved my career as well. So I'm glad for everyone, especially the one over there. Like, thank you, everyone. That really helped.
Hey, Gail, you're giving me some PTSD. Remember when we used to have those installation documents, and they were like 40 to 60-page documents with screens and red circles, and it's like,
yes. But the worst was to update them, because they would go out of date. You would have to change them, and then you would have to go through every screenshot.
Would say, "Oh, I got a better way to do it," and all those documents. I'm like, "Wait,
please don't."
Wow.
I have been there. Awful.
So bad.
Yeah, that's what stories. But Gail, I mean, because now great segue again into the community world. I mean, you are head of the kind of main organizer of the PSConf EU. There is the Global PowerShell Summit in the US. Both are coming up. I think the US one in April and the other one in June, I think.
Yep.
So what do you think that the community, PowerShell community, makes it? Why is it so special?
I think it's because everyone is there to help each other, and that's been the case from the beginning. And everyone's been, willing to help you, and whatever you come up with, the questions, problems, they will all try to find the solutions that guide you in the right direction. And it's not about being right; it's about helping everyone else. And everyone is really open-minded, along the way. So everyone is learning from the community. And I think that dynamic has been there since the beginning and still carried out today. So I really enjoy this, and that's why I keep doing this conference thing that takes a lot of time, but it's so much fun It's like every speakers we speak to, they say, "Oh, it's a lot of work," but every time they say, "Oh, I'll submit again, just this time, because I want to, I want to participate again."
Yeah.
And then every year they try and come back.
That's awesome. And Jeffrey, I mean, besides your semi-retirement, we learned that you are now also coming back to the conferences, to PowerShell conferences, right?
Indeed, I'm going to be at both of them.
Yeah, which is so. If people didn't have a reason yet to come to the Global PowerShell Summit or to the PSConf, you being there talking about PowerShell and more should be the top reason, right? And I remember,
I'll be there.
I remember when I interviewed you like 3 years ago. This was, I think, my final question. Like, will we see you in the future in some community PowerShell events? They said maybe. Now it's coming. It's becoming true, right? So, which is really great. And you have been part of the whole community from day one. Obviously, I mean, it all starts at the root, right? So how do you feel about how it evolved and how it is today?
I just love it. At some point we realized that this mouse was like evil, right? That it was intrinsically antisocial, right? And how we figured that out was at some point somebody's like, oh my God, have you seen what Bruce did? It's like, what? And we'd all go run into Bruce's office, like, what'd you do? And he'd show us this thing, and we're like, oh my God, that is so cool. And we'd run back to our offices and give me a copy, let me try it. And then we'd experiment. And all of a sudden it's like we were having fun. There was so much joy in this sharing of like, oh my God, that's amazing. He gave me something, then I gave him something. And we go back looking at each other's office and we realize like nobody ever says, boy, did you ever see the way Doug clicked that mouse? Oh my God, Kyle, watch him. Look at the way he used his finger. Oh my God, that's so amazing. And Doug, can you share that with me? Like, no. Like, what would I show? What are you asking? And so all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're antisocial. That the scripts allow you to, one, express your individuality, your genius, and then do it in a way that's a shareable component. And you give it to somebody, and then there's a debt of gratitude, like, oh, thank you so much. That helped me when I needed help. I owe you a beer, I owe you a coffee. I'm going to see you at a conference room. I'm going to say, oh, thank you. And then how can I help you? And so it formed this community. It was just glorious, right? I mean, when I go to these meetings and I see what people are doing, they're expressing their individuality and their genius. We've given them a tool for them to do it. That's what's so exciting. I mean, yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a good, again, another good segue into. I asked the community to create a couple of great videos, short videos about their PowerShell journey, and we got a few people actually submitting them. So I would share that. They're like each like 20-30 seconds, and it's kind of reflects what you just said in many of this. We will leave out this gentleman on the left because he's right with us. So, but I will start with Adil. I hope I didn't butcher his name, but and I hope I also have shared the audio. So let's roll it. Can you hear
Thank
something?
you, Jeffrey Snover and the PowerShell team. If I hadn't shifted my mindset from ClickOps to scripting and automation, I truly don't know where my career would be. And all of that started with PowerShell.
I like the ClickOps. I think this is like, I think it's the first one I heard that. It's the first time I heard that. So that's really cool. So let's go for Erwin. He's the inventor of the PNP PowerShell module, right? So yeah. Let's hear what he has to say.
I never met Jeffrey in person. Well, I've once been in the same speaker room as Jeffrey on a conference in the United States, and I was so starstruck. I didn't dare to walk up to him and say thank you. So now I'm going to say that. Thank you, Jeffrey, for the work you did on PowerShell. It changed my career.
That's quite a statement too, right? And I talked to him 2 years ago on a conference. He was so into the PNP PowerShell world, and he had even a session there. So it's really great. So let's move on to Andy. He's a guy I met also in person, and let's see what he has to say.
Getting into PowerShell was more or less a complete enabler on understanding how IT systems are working. I mean, not only from the administration perspective, but also from how data is handled. With PowerShell, I was able to do things that others around me considered as pure magic.
And I think this is something, Jeffrey, I guess you heard a lot, right, about this magic. Like, okay, you can do something, and all of a sudden, okay, things are automated.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
So let's go to Thomas here. Tom here.
Hi, Jeffrey. It was always a pleasure for me to talk to you in person. I hope to see you on the PSConf in Wiesbaden again. And I also think the community is missing you too.
Okay, so you're definitely going to meet in Wiesbaden, right?
Yeah,
awesome.
I'll be there.
Let's go on to Kevin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Levert. I wanted to say a quick thank you to Jeffrey and the PowerShell team. Discovering PowerShell back in 2014 charted the trajectory of my career, and it was for the better. And I really don't know where I would be without it today. Jeffrey, have a very happy retirement, and I look forward to what comes out of the next chapter.
Yeah, I think he speaks to all of us, for all of us.
Hey everyone, just wanted to say a quick thank you to Jeffrey, the PowerShell team, and the amazing community around it. PowerShell has played a huge role in my career over the past 8 years. It's helped me achieve things I honestly couldn't have without it, and it continues to be a big part of my work today. Shout out also to everyone in the PowerShell community for sharing your knowledge and making it better for all of us. Jeffrey, I hope you're enjoying your retirement, and to everyone watching, thank you and take care.
All right, and one more.
Hey Jeffrey, Prasun here. PowerShell has helped me to transform from an IT guy to a developer, and also helped me to know the wonderful tech community. I had 6x jump in my pay in just 10 months after getting strong in PowerShell, and also never been able to learn any other tech like I learned PowerShell, because none of them is giving me the same joy as I had while learning and exploring PowerShell. It is so wonderful. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, so again, thank you for everyone who submitted the videos. The page is still open, so if you still want to make a short video, say thank you to Jeffrey, the PowerShell team, the community, or just tell your PowerShell story, feel free. I will share the link. Obviously, I'm not prepared right now. I will share the link to record the video afterwards. And yeah, so back to you, Jeffrey. So okay, so after the PowerShell was there, then yeah, it evolved. Then you moved away from Microsoft to Google. You were starting, as you mentioned earlier, with the whole AI stuff. And I heard an interesting phrase last week at a live stream with you and Doug when you talked about AI, and a great phrase, I think. When it comes to using AI, your knowledge can become your enemy. Yeah. And this is like whoa, this is really profound. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically, one of the key things you need to do is to, what's the way to say this? As we grow, right, we learn what's possible and we learn what's impossible, right? Like, hey, you look out over a big building and you're like, hey, don't jump down. That'd be bad, right? So you learn things, right? You learn your capabilities, and then when you come to those things, you stop. And it turns out that with programming, you've learned a set of things like, oh, this is possible, that's not possible, etc. You have a worldview. And because of that, you've been very, very successful, okay? But now in AI, like all that changes, right? Like what's possible, what's not possible. Like I would say, oh, I'm not a GUI guy, right? I'm an infrastructure guy, I'm a systems guy, I'm an OS guy. And when it comes to GUIs, like I'm not a GUI guy. And then I started for my fellowship at Harvard, I'm developing some tools, and it's like, well, okay, these are going to be By the way, there's a ton of PowerShell there, but but I thought, well, I need to have a GUI for some of the consumers, and so I started using Claude. And I said, okay, well, here's what I want the GUI to do, and it produced the GUI for me, Jeffrey Snover, writing a freaking GUI. Like, well, I'm not writing the GUI. I'm telling Claude to write the GUI, but it's writing the GUI. If I had stuck with my knowledge, it's like, hey, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, I would have just said, well, hey, all you policymakers, all you lawyers, all you journalists, here's your command line interface to get information, and it probably wouldn't have gone this very far. So anyway, that thing of like what you know and what your knowledge of what's possible, what's impossible, what's easy and what's hard, like that's not your friend anymore, right? It's all changing, and like if you tried vibe coding like a few months ago and you found what I found, which was interesting, sucks, like you gotta like throw that away, because with Opus 4.6, like it was transformational. It was a step function up in capability. And so as you try some things, and again, they're going to suck, you have knowledge that it sucks. Well, you're going to have to throw that away every couple months, because the tools just keep getting better and better. It's crazy. I mean, it really is crazy.
Yeah, and it's a shift in mindset, right? So as you said, if you said, okay, it was bad 6 months ago, it might be brilliant now, or maybe tomorrow, right? So you have to be on your toes and always look at new things, right?
Well, I'm optimistic for the PowerShell community, right? So first, you're not click nexting, right? Like those folks, then, you know, if that was a stock, I'd short it. That stock's not going to do very well. But this community, it's all about like, hey, wait a second, I got this and I need that. How do I connect those dots? And then it's a community that then shares best practices. Guess what? I'm apprenticing myself to frickin' Doug. Doug is teaching me, Jeffrey, hey, do this, do this. I said, oh, thank you, Doug. Like everybody, if you're not paying attention to Doug, you're making a mistake. Like Doug is leading the way here. So I'm learning. And again, the community that's sort of the first instinct. Share best practices, learn from one another, figure stuff out. So I'm very optimistic about the PowerShell community. And by the way, the other thing I was just so excited about was that, like with PowerShell, we tried to achieve this model where you think about what you want, you type it, and you get it. You have to learn the syntax, right? But you say, oh, well, I'd like to get the processes where the handle counts are greater than 5,000. You type it to, so format it by table with table count, blah, blah, blah. And you could do that. But with AI, you can do that at a much higher level, and you don't need to know the syntax. That's what I'm so excited about. But by the way, for production systems, when it generates the code for you, you got to look at it. Like for me, like I'm not looking at the code. Claude's writing my GUI. Like, what do I care? The GUI, right? It's not a production system. There are some big companies. Some of them have 3 letters in their name. Others that have had situations where the AI produced code and the developer or admin just said, "Yep, go for it," and they had a global outage, like bad global outage. So you can't. In a production environment, like where it matters, where you are error sensitive. There are error sensitive and error insensitive domains. Like my GUI is an error insensitive domain. Sort of doesn't really matter whether it works or not. I mean, it should work, but it doesn't really matter. Your production servers really matter. When that's the case, you can use AI. By the way, again, people get this wrong. People say, well, you can't use it for those environments. No, my friend. Our entire industry is built on crappy, unreliable systems. Ethernet, crappy and unreliable. But you know that, right? And by the way, token ring, much better. They're not crappy, not unreliable, but more expensive, right? So Ethernet, you know that it's crappy and unreliable, and so you just look for that, and then you have a compensation strategy, and then it's reliable. UDP, crappy, unreliable. Yeah, you know that. You detect it, and you put a layer on top of it to address it, called TCP/IP. RAID, same thing. Disks come and go. They're crappy, they're cheap, but when you have you do erasure encoding, then all of a sudden you can do that, turn crappy, unreliable stuff into gold-plated, reliable stuff. That's what we do. So the fact that you say, well, AI is kind of crappy and unreliable, yeah. So an environment where it doesn't matter. An environment where it does, develop the strategy for figuring out how you're going to detect the errors and how you're going to compensate for them. Code reviews is where you do it with code.
Yeah, so that excellent advice when it comes to test the stuff that comes out. Never trust AI, right? So I think that's there were some interesting things that went through the media at some time. Absolutely, yeah. So when PowerShell got open sourced, I mean, this was another also great shift, right? From being closed code, and I think it gave another push also to the community, right? Because now basically you could say PowerShell is owned by the community, if you will, right?
100%. And I don't think the story's been told enough about how painful and how much effort went into open sourcing it. It was incredibly painful. We effectively had to throw away our entire test suite and write it from scratch. And we had a huge test suite. It was a year of grind. And at the end of that year, we shipped something that was less than what we started with. I mean, that was painful. We had some senior people, some real rock star, just to say, this doesn't seem like it's worthwhile a year of my life. I'm going to go do something else. And I go, when that happened, I was like, oh, are we doing the right thing? I was like, no, we are doing the right thing. And in the end, it's paid off incredibly well, but it was incredibly painful. The team that, there was no keynote, all wonder, glorious, 10 times better. No, that came, but this was one of those step back, do all the hard work. And the team really deserves credit for that grit. By the way, I was not part of that effort. I was rooting them hey, you got to go do this. But at that point, I wasn't in those trenches. Bruce was in those trenches.
Yeah. So Bruce, how was that for you?
It's exactly what Jeffrey said. It was a grind where, I mean, it would be nice to see something coming up on Linux or Mac OS, but it was a thing, it already worked in Windows, right? It wasn't like it was new functionality in PowerShell. It was just cross platform. And so, that was quite grind.
Yeah, and people say, well, why did you do it, right? Did you think you were going to be greeted by liberators, by the Linux community, and they were going to drop Bash and K-Shell? It's no, we had no confusion here. But what did we say? We had a sacred vow, You learn PowerShell, and we're going to invest in making you valuable, right? So here's the thing. How much value can you add? Well, it's a function of how much you can do. And if you say, hey, I'm a rock star at managing Windows, well, that's one amount of money. But if you say I'm a rock star at managing Windows and Linux, well, you're adding more value, right? You're more flexible, right? You can earn more money. And so if you say, hey, I'm a Windows admin and my company's thinking about doing Linux and I got to throw away all my skills and relearn it. Well, that's hard to do. It's hard for you to become valuable, hard to migrate your value to that environment. And we just said, well, hey, you can take your tools and this is one thing you won't have to learn. And so that was really the goal.
And it was obviously successful, right? I mean, it's everywhere now. So maybe yeah. So let's make another round to the panelists here about where do you see the future of PowerShell? Also, given that now we have it obviously for a couple of years now in open source. So Matthew, what do you think? Where's PowerShell heading? What will we see in the future?
That's a great question. I mean, I just see it continuing to evolve. You have with everything going SaaS now, right? You have all sorts of different endpoints that you have to talk to and different things to come in, and different MCPs and all those type of things. I really see PowerShell as a glue for all of those, right? Create that common interface. Noun, verb, simple parameters, get that all together and really kind of unify all of those different disparate platforms and APIs and REST and just across the board, just continuing to unify and, like Jeffrey said, grow those skills out, right? Take that beyond Windows, take that beyond Azure, use the same exact things in AWS or GCP or wherever.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Alexander, what would you say?
A couple of years ago, I had a conversation with one of the PowerShell team members, and I asked that same question. And that person told me that we're kind of done with PowerShell. We are not adding any new features there. We're kind of done. And I was surprised with that, because I was thinking, like, wait a minute, there's still some things that could be better, or I don't know, improved, or adding some new stuff and things. But as we can see in the last couple of years, we didn't get a lot of new features that will make your cat explode when you see them, like previously, when they actually tried to follow all the visions from Monad Manifest, and they were kind of in making huge changes between versions. But you don't see that anymore, I think, for a couple of years. But for me personally, AI changed everything, really. It kind of it injected a new life into PowerShell for me personally. I was never producing as much code as I'm doing today. And I was never able to kind of grasp the pastor test and all of those things, but now I'm kind of producing them on a daily basis, like so easy. And I'm spending more of my time actually writing instructions for reviewing the code that I'm getting, because like my goal is still, and maybe I'm wrong there, but like my goal is that when I look at the code produced by AI, it needs still to be maintainable by human. Personally, for the things that I'm doing, because like if I'm kind of getting like thousands of lines of code and I don't understand a single one of them, that will be like a black box. And I still like to know what's happening there, but it's now just amazing how you can integrate PowerShell with some other languages, and I don't even know those languages. But they are doing what I want to do with stuff, and I'm happy with it, right? So like you realize that you cannot accomplish something in PowerShell, and then you say like, okay, give me some C# code, and I don't know C#, but I can kind of read it, but not programming it. And then I'm kind of doing those things together, and they work, and I get the results that I like, and it's like, okay, that's it.
Yeah, you're getting the job done, right? So that's
right, exactly, exactly right. And for me, I think that AI really kind of changed how I look at the PowerShell again. It kind of revitalized again everything. Kind of using it for I don't know how many years now. We are talking about decades, but it's still fascinating to me that you can add AI to PowerShell, and then it will get like another new life with so many new capabilities and things. So that's how I see it in the future as well, really, right? That combination is just amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. So Doug, I know you're not a big fan of AI, but still, maybe you want to talk a little bit about it.
Dude.
PowerShell.
You told me I couldn't be contrarian. Where we're going with AI, we're not going to need programming languages, just like we're not going to need roads in Back to the Future. So just a couple of things. One is, talking to Jeffrey about AI, it's I show him stuff, but he's at a system level thinking mindset that I've said this to him I called bullshit on him when he and I were chatting, because I was like, he's like, I don't know how to use Claude. I'm like, well, clearly you're doing something right. You're generating all kinds of stuff. And when you have a system level thinking, he knows how to tell people do this. So telling AI to do X, Y, Z, he's at that meta level. And, I would love to talk more to Bruce about it. But AI, where we're going with AI, front ends, back end languages are not becoming more and more irrelevant. And to Alexander's point, when I don't even look at my code a lot, because I write rubrics that help me review my code, so I know it's at that it's hitting my idiomatic concepts. I'm doing test-driven development with PowerShell or other things. I'm doing red-green testing. We're doing I'm doing the disciplines that we learned in the 90s. So, and it's amazing how that applies in 2026. And I'll take it one step further. Design patterns. I asked, so in the design pattern book, is a first, am I going too long? Probably. In the design pattern book, there was a section about MVC, model view controller. They talk about it as a microarchitecture. It's like strategy pattern, observer pattern, all those different things. So I just went up to AI and I said, implement a GUI or a GUI in PowerShell, right? That, but I want it all driven through PowerShell, but use the MVC concepts, right? So use all the different patterns for the microarchitecture. And I one-shotted an application. Now, it wasn't production quality, and that wasn't the point. But when I looked at the code to see the observer pattern, the all the different patterns that I'm used to, the strategy pattern applied, right? What's the one that does the nested architecture? Anyway, so it did that, and it knew it off the top of its head. Now, you're not going to walk up to as a junior coder and say, let me use those techniques. But I don't know how you teach people to know to do that, but AI is ridiculously, amazingly capable. So we're not going to need front end, back end. We're going to have by May, we're going to have we're not going to be at 4.6. We're going to be at 4.7, which is going to be nuts. And then 3 months later, we're going to be at 5.0 in Opus and 6.0 in OpenAI. And it's going to be off the charts. And it's not about the LLMs. And this is my last point. It's about the harness. And I'll leave you hanging.
Yeah, awesome. We would say, do my job and order me a pizza.
We used to do that with PowerShell. Now we just do it with AI.
And read my mind. So maybe we have to come back in a year to see how far we came. Thank you. So yeah, what's your take on the future of PowerShell?
Yeah, I've actually migrated most of my scripts over to Braid 3 years ago. So
nice.
Thanks, Bruce.
All right.
The future of PowerShell. I find myself programming in a lot of different languages these days. But for me, the future of PowerShell is I learned how to think about and conceptualizing how to write a script, and I still use that knowledge that I picked up in PowerShell for my script creation, either by myself, but also very much AI assisted.
All right. Okay. So applying what you learned for other things, right, and bring it
that's correct.
To the next level. Awesome. Harm, what would be your take on the future of PowerShell is fun?
Well, the engine is already there, so the framework's there, but I guess it's more about security, making it more secure, more reliable, being able to connect to even more systems and vice versa. But it's incremental-ish updates. It's not the full big launches between 3, 4, 5 to 7. No, not those big steps anymore.
Gradual. All right. Evolution, not revolution. In this case, kind of. All right. Thank you. So, Gail, what do you think?
Hi. Until we can ask AI to do the work for us, unfortunately, I think there's a lot that will come from, I would say, the business. I think people still forget, PowerShell is a tool to glue things together, but that means the closer you get to the business, then, the more things you can do to help that business. And I think more companies will realize this, and they will just integrate more PowerShell closer to, the HR systems and other systems to manage this, automate a lot of it, obviously with the help of AI. And also, as Doug said, it's not just about the LLMs, it's also about the tools you can do with, in PowerShell, some of them exposed over MCP and then consumed again by your AI. So you can participate and you can enjoy this, because all the tools you're doing now, you will be able to use them through as well an LLM over the MCP protocol, for instance. So I think there's no competition in there. It's whatever you can on your business, the business, your organization, whatever nice thing you can do and the value you can create from them.
Yeah, by the way,
Awesome.
I'm using AI to write a bunch of PowerShell commandlets, and it's doing a great job. Really.
So I want to come back to. I have no idea what this is about. Maybe Jeffrey, can you
bring Alan
elaborate on that?
I forgot.
a call from the Microsoft security at a workshop at the PSConf? Any?
What was that?
That sounds
Alan?
interesting.
Yeah. I
Okay.
recently talked about the call I got from the Microsoft lawyers. So if you ever read my blog, it's at jsnover.com. Then there were a couple of events where Microsoft lawyers came, and at some point when we did DSC, the CEO of one of the configuration vendors didn't like that. He said, "Hey, you got to cancel PowerShell and you got to use my language." I was like, well, we agreed on that, but how about we agree on the platform play? And he basically filed an antitrust complaint against Microsoft.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God.
We went out of our way to make sure everybody got a preview of what we were doing before we actually.
Well, no, his team loved it. And then when I talked to him, I was like,
yes.
Yes. You know what I'm talking about. And then the scary lawyers came, and that was a bad day. Like, hello, we're from LCA, and we are calling to inform you that you are the subject of a formal investigation into antitrust violations. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. So that's another great story, and that's another good point. So for people who want to learn more about your journey, your blog is amazing. I mean, you're writing a lot of interesting stories. I guess since you're in semi-retirement, I see the frequency is getting shorter and shorter, which is great. So we learn a lot about.
I don't report. No one's giving me money that would be pissed off by the things I want to say. Really quite nice.
Okay, so we can expect some more great stories, right?
Juicy stories, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's really awesome. So so we hit the 1 hour mark. So we already got it into the 60 minutes, which is great. So I think it's time again to say thank you to Jeffrey, to the PowerShell team, Bruce, and all the other members and the community to create such an awesome technology, and from that creating this great community. And again, as I mentioned, so meeting the people in person, or let's put it this way, meeting people online is great, but meeting them in person is even better. So Global PowerShell Summit is in April. PSConf, Gale, is beginning of June in Wiesbaden, right?
Yep.
Yes, 1st of June. Yes.
And Bruce,
yeah.
you're gonna be at both. How about you, Bruce?
I'm going to be the one in Europe. Better beer.
Awesome. I also I try to be there at one of the evenings to meet you guys. It's going to be fun, I'm pretty sure. So again, thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you to everyone who is joining online. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks for taking the time. Jaap, I hope you get some flight home sooner or later from where you are. And I would say just keep on scripting and let there be PowerShell. maybe we should take this AC/DC song. Yeah. So thanks again. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Heiko.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.